So I got my access to Google Bard. They sent me an email. You can see it here. It's your turn to try Bard. There's a button there in the middle that says take it for a spin, but there's also some important information over at the FAQ page that I want to check out before we dive in. If you don't have access to Google Bard yet, you can simply go to bard.google.com and you can join the wait list. It took me about 3 days after I signed up to get access. Again, back to that email, there was an FAQ page. If you simply go over to the FAQ page, what is Bard or what's Bard all about? They say that 2 years ago, they unveiled LaMDA, a language model for dialogue applications. It's one of the AI models. It's a model that is capable of answering your questions when you give it input, and the output is based on all of the information they fed into it. That's not really what this is about. What I want to cover and I want to look at is things like, what is Bard going to give us compared to ChatGPT or Bing, the other AIs that I've covered here on the channel when focusing on content creation. So, does Bard give accurate and safe responses? Bard is experimental and some of the responses may be inaccurate, so double check the information in Bard's responses with your feedback. Bard is getting better every day. Another important piece here, or something you should really understand, especially when we're looking at AI, even Google Bard for content creation, is Bard, like some other standalone LLM experiences, is intended to generate original content and not replicate existing content at length. We design our system to limit the chances of this occurring, and we will continue to improve how these systems function. If Bard does directly quote at length from a web page, it then cites the page. So it's citing the reference or the resource that it's pulling the information from. The cool thing here is Bard was built to be a creative and helpful collaborator. The idea here is it is a helpful assistant for you to create content. Obviously, Google being the king of search, I don't think that they're going to want to create a tool that's basically just going to generate content in mass and then bombard spam up on sites and pages and have people searching through tons and tons of information, or tons and tons of information that's very similar based upon the AI spitting out answers to the same questions that we're all trying to rank for. Then the FAQ continues on here, and it talks about all the different types of things that Bard can do. For example, how can explain, or if and how can it explain how it works. One of the things here is LLM experiences, meaning the AI, Bard included, can hallucinate and present inaccurate information as factual. One example is that Bard often misrepresents how it works. We've seen this occur in a number of instances. For example, in response to prompts asking how it was trained, or how it carries out various functions like citing sources or providing fresh information. And it goes in here to talking about Google privacy and all that kind of stuff. And you should really, again, check all these out and understand what's going on as far as when you sign up for the wait list and it accessing your account. Because when you do get the email and you decide to take it for a spin, it's going to take you over to terms and policies, and very few people are going to actually read through all this stuff and make sure that what it says in the terms and policies makes sense and they're all okay with it. But just like most everything on the internet, yes, I agree, because you want to play with the thing they're giving you. Bard is an experiment. As you try Bard, please remember, Bard will not always get it right. Bard may give inaccurate or inappropriate responses. When in doubt, use the Google it button to check Bard's responses. Again, Google it, meaning go find the information that Google has indexed based upon its current algorithm or algorithms, the way that it decides if information out on the internet is credible or not. You get into that whole world of when you create content, are you a trusted source? Are you credible? Do you have experience? The whole EAT, experience, authority, and trust, that whole thing when you're talking about getting your content, the content that you create, ranked and positioned to help people. And then, of course, you're trying to use that like we do here at 30 Minute Marketing as an affiliate marketer to try to make money. Then you are a credible source. And then, of course, you're linking out to other resources, typically a paid product. And then, of course, it reminds you that Bard will get better with your feedback. And then you say, got it. Then you are inside and you have access to basically enter the prompt. This is just like ChatGPT or Bing, when you're using the new Chrome or the new Edge browser provided by Microsoft that is ChatGPT enabled via Bing search. So again, you're in here and it tells you things that it can do. I want to write a novel. How can I get started? You can outline my blog post about summer mocktail recipes or help me incorporate more high protein vegan options in my diet. So again, you come here and you simply enter a prompt. Here I'm going to ask it a question. Again, this question is based on creating content or the idea of getting a better understanding of the type of content that we'd create. To answer this question, I'm going to be buying a puppy but never owned a dog. I live in a small apartment in the city. What do I need to know? And I'm simply going to hit submit. It's going to do its magic and then it's going to come back with its response. And here you go. Congratulations on your decision to get a puppy. Owning a dog can be a wonderful experience, but it's important to be prepared before bringing your new furry friend home. Then it gives you some of the things that you need to know when owning a puppy because it's a big responsibility. You can then judge it, good response, bad response, or you can get a new response, or you can simply hit the Google It button. Hitting the Google It button brings down the search related topics, and you can see here, first time dog owner apartment in city, and then down here in the left hand corner, you can see that's a Google search. If you click that, it opens up a new tab, and then it gives you the information. So if you were creating content, the phrase or the keyword here would be first time dog owner apartment in city. And then you can see here, city dogs life, Reddit, and then also other questions. But the idea here is, or to think that what does Bard actually do for us? It generates an answer, a realistic answer that we as content creators can take and use as inspiration to build content. So now we could take this and we could say, okay, let's view other drafts. And you can see some other drafts here that it wrote. But then what can we do with the AI? The power of LaMDA, in this case, Google's AI or their language model. Let's just ask it to please turn this into a blog post outline and see what we get. Again, this is the first experience. This is my first time actually using Google Bard as an experiment. I got access to it just like I showed you by signing up over at bard.google.com. And we are just letting this or giving it a test drive to let us see inside of Google Bard because, like I said, it's your turn to test it out, or that's what they told me. It's my turn. It's your turn. So let's give it a go and see what we get. Sure, here's a blog post outline about how to prepare for a new puppy in a small apartment in the city. Get an introduction, you get a body, and you scroll down and you get a little bit of a conclusion. And then, of course, you have the Google It button, and then you have the good response, bad response, or generate a new response. If you were to generate a new response, it'll go ahead and it will go through that process to generate a new response. And then you can see here it generated a new response, and you could read that basically, or you can look at the way that it broke this down. I like here, this actually gave me tips. So it adds a different dynamic to, or adds more information than what I might have been thinking about in the other outline. That's pretty cool. So then I don't know at this point what you would do other than to just keep exploring your prompts. Take your prompts that you've learned from ChatGPT or your other AI interfaces and just play with Bard or experiment with it like it says it is a Bard experiment. They've released this. You get on the waiting list and then you come here and you test drive it and you give feedback based upon what you see and your experience with it. So let's try one last experiment. Please deep dive into the tips you provided and go into detail for each tip given and go ahead and submit. And let's just see what we get back and see where this experiment with Google Bard can take us. And here you can see, sure, here's a deep dive into the tips I provided. Puppy proof your apartment. If you scroll up a little bit and you can see here, you will have the first 3 tips. So then you can take these 3 tips and see how they've actually dived into it. But you can see it didn't just highlight the tips. It actually went up here to the body about get a crate. And it also went into puppy proofing your apartment. So it actually used these as tips and it didn't focus in on what I thought it would do or what I actually wanted it to do. Just focused in on these 3 tips versus the other information up here. But you can see it did deep dive into everything that it talked about and it gave you further information. And then again, if you were to come down and hit Google it, you can see here deep dive into the tips for buying a puppy in a small apartment in the city. I'm not sure that that is something that you would want to try to create content, meaning it's not a real keyword. But you can see here 8 tips for living in a tiny apartment with a puppy. Again, a different spin, a different thought on something, or creating content and thinking, what are people searching for? Well, in this case, people are searching for tips for living in a tiny apartment with a puppy based upon what we started with over in Bard. And then we go back and we can scroll up and we can see our conversation because it keeps the history as far as the chat that we're having right now. There is no history over here on the left-hand side. So just like Google Bing, this doesn't have a history like what you've seen in ChatGPT. And if you haven't seen any of my videos on those, I'll go ahead and leave a playlist to the other AI content that I'm doing in the description. Check that out if you have any questions. I'd like to see more videos like this about content creation and getting ideas from these AIs, these language models that are being put out, ChatGPT, Bing, and now Google Bard. Go ahead and let me know in the comments. If the video was helpful, give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.